is Locked On Jazz for the 13th of January. The Utah Jazz might be discovering something offensively without Rudy Gobert. We'll delve into what that is and how it looks, where the Jazz might be gaining some ground. Plus, we'll stop this madness and look at what's actually important about the Utah Jazz at the halfway point of the season. That's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Thank you very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Hello to our regular live crew, Lee, Lacey, Josh, Daniel, Bryce, Jeremy, Ray, and Robert, saying good morning, loyal to their team, despite the fact that the Jazz are struggling a little bit right now without their regular guys. I actually think there's some good things coming out of this right now. I want to briefly go through last night's game, and then I am going to take a look at where I think the Jazz might be discovering a little something to who they are and another weapon in their quiver offensively. Then what really matters? We're at the halfway point of the season. The Jazz, I think, are 24-18, if I'm right. Or no, that's not 28-14. And what really matters? What really matters at this point is how we've done against some of the better teams in the league. So we'll look at that. We'll reset to actually what matters here and do that in the show today. All right, quick run through of last night. I don't want to make it. We had nobody taller than 6'4". But there was actually some interesting stuff. In the first quarter, our offensive rating was only a 96.8, and our defensive rating was only a 118. But it actually felt decent. Excuse me, that was for the game. I do that every time I hit the wrong button. So in the first quarter, our offensive rating was 100. Our defensive rating was a 117. It didn't but there was, I'll get to it in a second. There's something that actually felt good about what we were doing. In the second quarter, our offensive rating went up to a 112. Our defense was a 124. And then we were just short guys. In the third quarter, we couldn't score. Our offense completely fell apart. It went to a 70. I mean, just totally dry. Didn't score for 4 minutes. Our defense actually didn't totally collapse. It was a 125, which is not good. But considering we weren't scoring, that was it. And then the fourth quarter, it was a 104.5. Our offense just completely fell apart in the third quarter of last night's game. And that's the story of the game. Here's what I thought was interesting last night. If you go by period, the Jazz in the first quarter of the game had 9 shots within 9 of 12 within about 5 feet of the basket. At least that's what I believe the number was. Yeah, but 9 of 10, 9 of 12 from about 5 feet around the basket. They drove, they got inside, they had 5 out, they spread the Cavaliers out really nicely. We're driving to the basket, doing some interesting things, playing 5 out offensively, frankly, in a way that they're really small. Royce was the center to start, but we actually haven't seen them do. They missed some threes. They only got 1 corner 3, which is always the indicator to me of whether the offense is really churning or not. They went, I think, 2 of 9 from 3, or 2 of 8 from 3 in the quarter. No, 2 of 9 from 3 in the quarter. And then in the second quarter, they still got 4 shots at the rim that they made. They got pushed out a little bit with the Cavaliers, I think, making some adjustments. But then they answered by bearing a bunch of threes. And they got around the horn a little bit. They had 3 corner threes. They went 4 of 8 above the break. So I think they were 5 of 11 in the quarter. They got the 3 shots at the rim. And so, it wasn't a great first half of offense, but you actually had this kind of nice combination of we went to the rim, pounded the rim for 9 shots, driving, spreading them out. They started to collapse on it. We kicked out for threes. And then in the third quarter, it just fell apart. We didn't make a 2 in the entire quarter. And I did not punish myself to go back and review it. But we did, what's interestingly is we did take 7 corner threes in a quarter, which to me is usually the sign that we're doing something right. We got a ton of left corner threes, 5 of them, went 0 for 2 on the right. It's usually a sign to me that like we're actually doing things correctly. And I'm not entirely sure, what went wrong. Bogey went 1 for 4, did not have a very good shooting game. Donovan went 0 for 1 on one of those corner threes. Joe had been ejected by then, so we weren't going to see Joe. Jordan went 1 of 2 on corner threes, and Mike didn't get any. And then Royce really was hesitant to shoot last night, more so than usual. Finally, kind of let it rip a few times late. But so anyway, I think I thought there was like a little something there. Here's what I want to get into today. So I thought that wide open, you're playing some small pick and roll, which I'll get into here in a second. I thought there were just some things there we could take. Here's the facts. Since Rudy's gone out, we're not very good, right? Like I can couch it all you want. So if the facts are, we're the 26th team in differential over the last 5 games. Atlanta, Houston, Oklahoma City, and Detroit are worse. We're 1-4. We beat, we have the win against them. We're 17th in the league offensively without Rudy, and we're 30th in the league defensively. Okay. We're also without Rudy Gay and Hassan Whiteside last night. We were without Joe Ingles. This is kind of where we are. So that's the truth. Like we're not good without Rudy right now. And it's interesting that we are a little stunned where we are defensively. I'm not sure why. We've been in the 12th percentile without Rudy for like 3 years off defensively. What is a little stunning is, okay, we're 17th offensively. So let's dig into what's happened there. And then let me see if I can show you where I actually think the team may be learning something. So on a regular night in the season, we set 92 picks in a game. So here's our offense on a given night. 90 picks. I'm going to round some numbers up here just because I think you have a better chance of remembering if they're round. So 90 picks, 50 drives, 15 isolations, 15 handoffs. That's kind of our offense, right? And then, hopefully 15 transition. That would be the next side of it. You would hope that we're getting out in transition about 16. That's transition defense, transition offense. We're about 13 times a game. You would hope we're out about 15 times a game. Okay. So that's kind of the way we look at it. So 90 picks, 50 drives, call it 15 isolation, 15 handoffs, 15 transitions. We're a little short on those last 15s, but just to round the numbers up. And we throw about 275 passes a game. Okay, so the first thing that's happened without Rudy is our passing's gone away. We're now averaging 257 passes, 18 fewer passes in our last 3 games than we did before. We have not been over 262, which we were in Indiana. And we actually have gotten kind of fallen the last. We were 260 against Denver, 261 against Toronto, 262 against Indiana. And then we went that had terrible second half against Detroit. We were 246. And then Cleveland, we were 257. The second thing is that our picks are way down, right? Obviously. So we're setting 10% fewer picks than we were setting prior. It's a lot. Like 10% is a lot. Against Denver, we actually set the normal amount of picks. And against Indiana, we set our normal amount of picks. And in both those games, our offensive ratings were actually pretty good, which is interesting. Toronto, we only shot 77. We hardly had our team. 83 against Detroit and 79 picks last night against Cleveland. So last night, we were about 15 to 18% down from our regular amount of picks. What we've become is almost an exclusively drive team. Like we don't have the pick. We don't have the advantage. We've become a much heavier drive team and a much heavier isolation team. Our drives are up about 12 to 15%. And our isolation game is up about 30%. We had 24 isolations against Indiana. We had 23 against Cleveland. We regularly have 15, right? That's up almost 50%, those 2 games. Our drives, we had 64 last night. We had 71 against Toronto. We had 61 against Detroit. And our regulars, 51, right? So in that case, we're almost up 20%. Our handoffs are down from 13 is the real number, down to 10. And so we've become a drive isolation team without picks, creating our own advantage rather than getting the advantage with our pick and then kick and pass team. And that's not a great script for us. We're not terrible at it. It's just not a great script for us. In fact, you know, it's not, I don't think it's the same thing of what you're seeing from us defensively. Um, but if you kind of look at where we rank on things around the league as a team, um, those are usually our strong points. So if you look at where the Utah Jazz rank as a team on things offensively, we're the number one team in the league pick and roll ball handler. Okay, well that's okay. That hurts us. We've suddenly gone, and as we talked about, we've lost about 10 to 15% of our picks. We're the number one team in the league on pick and roll ball handler. We're the 10th best team in the league in spot up, which is coming off passing, and we just talked about how our passing's down. We're the 5th best team in pick and roll with a roll man on the pick and roll. Okay, well, we just talked about how we're down 15%. Our isolation game's not bad. We're the 9th best isolation team, but on an isolation shot, our effective field goal percentage is 48%. On a pick and roll ball handler, it's 54%. So we're moving those plays to things that are less efficient. We're a good cutting team. I haven't seen it much recently. We're a decent off the screen team. We're a handoff team. We're average. And obviously we don't post up a great deal. So that's, kind of who we are. If you look at our drive game, which is where we've suddenly, become pretty dominant into this, and we look at drives per game, which I don't have. I have drives per 100 possessions. On an average night, Don's getting 22 drives. Actually, Trent Forrest gets 20 of all things when he plays. Conley gets 19. Clarkson gets 17. And then, other guys kind of grab a few here and there. This is, I believe this might have, I'm trying to see. Boyan gets about 9 a game. If we filter this and look at what's happened over the last few days, where we take it since the Denver game and take our earliest date is January 4th, and our latest date is today on this, what you'll see is that some of those numbers have changed a little bit. So Donovan is suddenly up 4 drives a game. He's gone from 22 to 27. Mike Conley's actually holding the same at 19. Jordan Clarkson's gone from, I think, was 17 to 19. Trent Forrest is like driving every time he touches the ball because that's all he can do. He doesn't shoot. Jared Butler's in there too. Boyan gets a little bit more. So we're suddenly having Clarkson, Donovan one-on-one drives at a much higher level than we've ever before, because that's what we're forced to do. So how is this actually making us better? I'll explain that next. That's why our offense isn't as good. That's where we've just kind of lost who we are. We've gotten to less efficient things. We're not able to do our best stuff. That's the explanation there. Why this actually might make us better, I'll get to here in just a second. Today's show is brought to you by Intercap Lending. Steve Carter and the crew at Intercap do amazing work, and so appreciative of everything about Steve Carter. What I really love about Steve Carter is that I send you to him and I don't have any concerns. And then actually even better than that is that I take the next step, which is I send you to Steve Carter, and then I inevitably get a letter back, which is many of the reviews that I've talked about how incredible he is. Intercap's in their 40th year. They're one of the largest independent companies out there. Josh Romney bought them in April of 2016, moved them to Utah. They started like a few branches. Then they went to 15. Now they've expanded even more. They're just blowing the numbers out. Why? Because they get deals done. They're hyper responsive, a direct lender. They do fabulous work. And Steve Carter's our own personal loan officer that we set up. Brock was really smart when we built this ad campaign many, many years ago. He's like, okay, here's your personal loan officer. We'll give you a corporate rate. It's worked beautifully because Steve's the best. Steve Carter's number is 385-800-8528, 385-800-8528. You're welcome to email me directly at dlock09@gmail.com and see what you find. dlock09@gmail. Not to see what you find. dlock0, and I'll send you and connect you. Intercap Lending, NMLS number 190465. For more information, visit intercaplending.com. We'll get back to that brain cramp in a second. Again, Steve Carter's number is 385-800-8528. If you want to, you can just directly hit me up at dlock09@gmail.com, and I will just send over an email, connect you guys. It might be the easiest way to do it, so feel free. I don't mind that in any way, shape, or form. I have a really interesting one I want to share with you. There's a group called Summit Capital, and they're a local Utah venture capital firm. They actually invested in Locked On. Matt Peterson, David Lillywhite, and the crew, and they were great. They invested their money. They weren't experts in podcasting media. They asked great questions. They were 100% supportive. And they're looking for one of three things, one of which I find fascinating. So they're looking to provide capital for management seeking to buy up owners' businesses they work in. I'll explain that in a second. That's the one I think is super interesting. Owners seeking to sell their businesses, or entrepreneurs seeking capital to help grow businesses. That's what they do. They were great for us. The first one's really interesting. You work for a company, old ownership. They've been around for a long time. They want to get out of the business. They don't have somebody to sell it to. You work for them. You know the business. You don't have the capital, but you're the perfect person to take over the business and buy it from the owner. The owner leaves well. Summit Capital supports you. Everyone wins. It's pretty cool. Matt, Dave, and the crew are interesting people. They're all entrepreneurs themselves, and they approach investing in that, and so they give you the freedom to do your work. Unlike private equity or venture capital funds, they don't have artificial timelines. They never once asked us when we were selling or anything of that nature. We sold pretty quickly, so I don't think they were going to worry about it too much. But never once, when even in the when we were asking for money, did they ever say, "Well, how long? What's our timeline? What's your plan?" It was all just, do you have a plan? What are you doing? Go do it. Pretty interesting. Good people. So if this fits you, 801-769-2033, text them at 801-796-2033 or lockedonjazz@summitcapitalutah.com. That's lockedonjazz@summitcapitalutah.com. You can also go to their website, summitcaputah.com. Actually, excuse me. It's lockedonjazz@summitcaputah.com. lockedonjazz@summitcaputah.com or 801-796-2033. I screwed that up enough that you can feel free to just email me directly. All right. So thank you very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. I was going to go back to that brain cramp and laugh at myself, but I don't even remember what the brain cramp was. Here's where we might get better. Here's where I think we're discovering something. So on a given night, we run 47 picks to Rudy Gobert on a given night. He averages 1.05 picks. Frankly, only Frank Kaminsky and Gungu, I'm missing his name. I can't see it in front of me right now. For Atlanta, who's working with Trae Young right now, who's their rising star, and why they are going to trade Clint Capella and go get Ben Simmons. The kick out of USC, who's playing really well, are better than Rudy at this point. So Rudy's the third best in the league. Whiteside gets 21 picks a game. He's at 1.01. Whiteside, for all the much he's seemed to be horrendous in the stretch, and some of it's been defensively. Offensively, he's actually been better. He's gone from 21 picks to 35, and he's gone from 1.01 to 1.05. So he's playing with probably more versatile guards, different guys. He's actually gotten a little bit better. Here's what gets interesting is we've been forced to run small pick and roll, probably trying to find little matchups. We were killing Lauri Markkanen for a while last night and trying to find these kind of matchups. And we've gotten pretty good at it. So on a regular night, we run 10 exchanges. I wouldn't really call them picks. We'll call them exchanges with Royce O'Neal. We're running 20 right now. So probably a pretty important, teams hide bad defenders on Royce O'Neal because he's not going to punish you. This is an important little thing for us to have, and we're doing it brilliantly. In the last 5 games, we're averaging 1.15 points per pick when Royce O'Neal, 20 times a game is a lot, is interplaying. Rudy Gay was averaging 6 picks a game. Again, Rudy was out last night. We didn't know how we played last night. Let's not talk about last night. It's a great line. Let's not talk about last night. Rudy Gay is at 6 picks a night at 1.05. During this stretch, he's setting 14, and we're averaging 1.23 points per pick. Way better. Okay? Rudy Gay's, no, wait a second. Now all of a sudden we're playing small. And remember, our big problem we were having with the small lineup was as bad as it was defensively. And frankly, we're bad defensively when Rudy Gobert is off the floor. I think we've all got that by now. It's pretty much been hit over the head by 2x4 with that. So maybe we should stop worrying about, and I actually never did worry about the fact that we were bad small defensively. I knew that because Rudy's not on the floor. We're just bad defensively when Rudy's off the floor. What was really bothersome to me is that we were really bad small offensively because we're so pick dependent. We run 92 picks a game. We couldn't figure out how to do that. And our spacing was screwed up. As much as you think that having 5 out should create all this spacing at the rim, frankly, having Rudy dive, having them have to bring another guy to him or bring another guy to the ball handler. And now the ball handler, sure, Donovan and Mike feel like they're in traffic at that point, but Rudy's taking a lot of attention. They've brought an extra guy in. You have a passing outlet. When you're playing one-on-one, yeah, if you beat your guy, you're free to the basket. We've seen more of that from Don and Mike recently. But there's also, you're driving and they're digging in off Royce or they're digging in off somebody, and it's a little harder to get through. The spacing's not as good. So really, let's make sure we understand exactly what's happened here. We lost Rudy while we're in Denver, okay? We don't practice. We play Denver. Half the team goes to Indiana. Half the team goes to Toronto because we don't want to get anyone stuck behind the border. The outbreak extends. We go to Indiana. We come back. It's a back end of back-to-back, no practice, right? We play Indiana. Now we've also played 3 games in 4 nights, all on the road. We're at the end of a 5-game road trip. The outbreak is happening. We're in Detroit. We don't want to get on a bus. We don't want to go to the arena. We do some stuff in the ballroom, but we don't practice. I'm learning this now. I apologize. I wasn't with the team, so I would have had a much better understanding of this. Okay. We get to Detroit. The outbreak kind of calms for a second. But it's still present, right? We come back home. We've just gone on a 5-game road trip in 8 nights. We're not practicing. So we've literally lost Rudy Gobert a week ago and never had a practice day. Never had one chance for Quinn Snyder to get on the floor and say, okay, if we're going to play 5 out all the time, here's how we're playing, here's what we're doing, until yesterday's shoot-around. And we saw some signs of it getting a lot better. We're seeing Bojan Bogdanovic, who usually sets 3 picks a game, setting 9. He's gone from 1.01 to 1.14. All these guys have gotten way better. You've seen Eric Paschall, frankly. So you suddenly have Whiteside's gotten better. I'm not really quite frankly, if Whiteside's going to be this up and down, there's a real question of whether you're relying on him in the playoffs unless you see some level of consistency. And then in the playoffs, can we play 5 out for 12 minutes a night? Okay, for 10 minutes a night. Okay, for 8 minutes a night. Okay, Rudy never leaves the floor. Forget it. No, we can't play him 48. Play him 40. So for 4 to 5 minutes a half, in short stints, when Rudy does his 3 stints, we shorten them all down. We suddenly make Rudy's 3 stints are they suddenly all 3 of Rudy's stints 6 minutes, 9 minutes? It's a lot, right? 9-minute stints actually can't happen. 8-minute stints can't happen either. So they're all Rudy's playing 3 6-minute stints. So he's playing 18 plus 18, playing 36. He plays a few, 7-minute stints. He gets up to 38. He gets up close to 40. Those little gaps in the middle, those 2 gaps, can we play 5 out? Paschall's your center. Gay's your center. Maybe they're playing together. I don't know. I think that's the evolution we're going to see in the next 40 games. But what we're seeing here is that Royce O'Neal's gone from 1 point per pick and roll to 1.15. Rudy Gay's gone from 1.05 on a pick to 1.23. Bojan Bogdanovic has gone from 1.01 to 1.14. That's important. They're figuring that out without any practice time, without a single moment of time together to work on it. That's us getting better offensively. All right, we'll look at what matters. How have we actually performed against the top 10 teams as we're at the 50% mark of the season? Because that's actually what matters. Prize Picks is the most fun, best daily fantasy game that's out there. You can get all sorts of great props, and you can do it quick and fast. It's a lot of fun, so make sure you jump out. You've been hearing about Prize Picks for months, and now is the time to jump aboard. Users get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Pick entry scores a single point, but you must use the code NBA. That's right, exclusive offer to Locked On listeners. Here's the deal. Use the promo code NBA, and if you get one player scores a point, you get a $50 pick. Prize Picks is the best DFS prop game out on the market. Prize Picks offers you props you can think of, from points to assists to rebounds to threes made, etc. You pick 2 to 5 players, and over under their projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you and the projected numbers. So go to prizepicks.com, go to your app store, download the app. All the users that deposit and use the promo code NBA will get $50 free for your first Prize Pick entry scores a single point. That's right. All users that deposit and use the promo code NBA will get $50 free if your Prize Pick entry scores a single point. Prize Pick is daily fantasy made easy. Today's show is also brought to you by betonline.ag. Oh gosh, what about the Brooklyn Nets last night? That was a statement. I'm going to watch that game today. That's what I do in my free time. I go back and watch the games I missed. I know. Like, really? Like, people always ask me, like, have you seen Breaking Bad? No. I saw The Wire. Have you seen, no. Have you seen? No. I watch the NBA. That's what I do. I watch the NBA. That's it all the time. Warriors and Bucks tonight. Bucks are 1.5 point favorite. That'll be great. Clippers and Pelicans. Pelicans are a 3.5 point favorite. Nets are back out, but they play the Thunder. And then the Portland Trailblazers are a 10.5 point dog with Dame Lillard out for an extended period of time. NBA game props are available as well on betonline.ag. Championship lines. The Phoenix Suns have jumped us. The Lakers have totally fallen. Finally. The Nets are 275. The Warriors are plus 350. The Bucks are plus 750. Suns plus 800. We're plus 1,100, so we're still top 5. Heat are at plus 1,400, and the Lakers are plus 1,600. Bulls are plus 1,800 at the number 1 seed. That's got to bum you out. The conference odds, the Nets are at 145. Bucks at 360. Heat at 500. In the West, Warriors are 150. Suns are at 400. Jazz are at 550. Lakers are at 750. Wow, everyone thinks we're going to get a Nets-Warriors final. That'd be pretty big. Probably be good for the league. All right, I see there's a bunch of stuff in the chat room. I think I commented on this last night. I thought Joe's ejection was strange. Just that he was arguing somebody else's call and he got ejected and he already had a technical, and his play on Jared Allen was really weird. I think, Hayden wants to know about Epe Udo. I thought he was kind of retired. He wasn't moving very well when he was with us last time, so I don't think he's the answer. But I think that's I love him, and he is a great citizen. So I think that's great. Ryan checks in from Solitude today. My dad comes into town. My 81-year-old, 81, 82? How old's dad? Today, and he is skiing for the next 8 days. So comes in today. So I will probably see you up at Solitude. I'll tell more stories about him at some point. Maybe we'll let him be part of a show one day. We can do what's that Reddit thing where you ask me anything, but you can do it to my dad and he can share stories about how obnoxious I was as a kid. Yeah, I don't think actually any of you care, and I even think less that it's a good idea for him to reveal all that thing. All right. Here's the real conversation. This is later in the show than I wanted, but let's take a look at the Jazz against the top 10 differential teams in the league. Okay? Because that really tells us where we sit. So the Warriors are the best in the NBA against the top teams. They're 10-4. Their differential's a +9. They are the 6th best offense. They're the number 1 defense in the league. Miami's second best at 10-5. They're +6. The average in the league, by the way, is -5 for these games. Against a top 10 differential team in the league, you're -5. Differential is point offensive efficiency minus defensive efficiency. So this is supposed to be the 10 best teams in the league. Miami's offense is the second best in the NBA. Their defense is the second best. That's worth noting on Miami. The Jazz have the 3rd best differential, but we're 4-6. We do have that Milwaukee game, which counts, where we played a team that did not have very many players. So that's like one caveat on this, but I'm sure Golden State and Miami have something similar in some of their games. Everyone's going to. We're the number 1 offense in the NBA against the top 10 teams in the league. We're the 13th ranked defense. Like, that was my point before Rudy got hurt, was what should be concerning to us, or Rudy got COVID. What should be concerning to us is that we're not good defensively against the best teams. So we rank 13th. Memphis is fourth at plus 2.2. They're the third best offense in the league, the sixth best defense. They're 9-3. They're now ahead of us in the standings, by the way. Cleveland is 5-10 after last night. They're the 15th best offense and the third best defense. But they have the fifth best differential. Those are the only 5 teams in the NBA that are positive against the top 10 teams. So we're one of them. We have the best offense. We're about 7 points above league average offensively, which is about where we are overall. We're a point better than Miami. We're 2 points better than Memphis, who's next. We're 2 points better than Portland, who's third, and Toronto, who's 5, and Golden State. And then defensively, we're just not great. We're 13th in the league defensively against the best teams. We're 13th against the shot. We don't force turnovers. That's our MO. We're not great on the board. That's Hassan Whiteside is really not a very good defensive rebounder. When he's on the floor, at least we're not. Let me rephrase that. When he's on the floor, we're not a very good defensive rebounding team. And we're good at not fouling. So really, it's just defending the shot. Now, you kind of want to dig into that a little bit and see whether or not there's some weird shooting things that are going on here that's always kind of worthwhile to look at because, I always believe in looking at defensive accuracy of shooting. So we go look at the top 10 teams in the league differential and look at it like what's our 3-point shooting again. So the Warriors who are the number one defense, are also the number one 3-point shooting defense at 33.5. That might be a little bit of a misnomer. It might be a little unlikely. Cleveland is number 2 at 33.8. Brooklyn's number 3 at 33.9. We are right in the middle of the pack. Teams are shooting 36.6% against us from threes. The good teams, they're not shooting well at the rim. They're shooting pretty well on the little floater. They're not they're not shooting well on the little floater because Rudy impacts it. They're shooting 46% on long twos. Probably not a huge amount, but that's worth noting. I don't think it really matters. And they're shooting 36% from 3, right on the league average. Whereas Golden State, Cleveland, Brooklyn, that might be athleticism, have been able to get the best teams to shoot less well in those moments. But if you look at us defensively, we don't force turnovers. We're not defending the shot great. One of the bigger problems we're having is 2 things we're having against the best teams. They're scoring at the rim at will, 68% shooting at the rim, 25th in the league in that. So in other words, they're spreading us out and they're getting to the rim, or at least they're scoring when they get to the rim. We'll see what they're getting to here in a second. Let me take a look at that and make sure I'll share that with you. And then they're making half their rate of threes. We're average at denying them shots at the rim. We're great at denying them threes. They are getting a lot of long twos, and they're hitting a decent percentage. That's kind of what we want. So I think there's 2 things. One is we're not rebounding as well as we should. Our defensive rebounding against the best teams is not as good as it should be. We're getting a little unlucky on long two shooting, but that's where we kind of want to force teams. And when teams are getting to the rim, they're shooting at an alarmingly high rate. And so that's why we're not as good defensively as we should. All right, I hope you guys had a good time in chat room. I always try to involve the chat room, but I did not today. So I'll be more active on that tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a Friday. It'll be a points gained Friday, which will be wild because there'll be all sorts of weird players in there from this week. And we'll also take a look at what Denver coming up and see if we have any new news. I don't even know if the Jazz are practicing today. They hardly have. We had 10 players out last night after Joe got ejected. Have a good one. This is Locked On Jazz. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Go listen to Locked On Now. Kim Becker hosted it. She's fabulous. It's on YouTube at Locked On NBA. Go grab that tonight or today. Enjoy it. Tell me what you think. None of you guys have told me what you think of Locked On Now. Locked On Now is like my baby. I've got no feedback. At this point, I just want to know how much you like it. I have a question, actually, for those of you who are still with us on the show. Nate Duncan does a really cool thing where he does the 15 teams in the conference in like 60 minutes with commentary around it. And but it's behind a paywall now. If we did something similar on Locked On where each of our hosts did like a 90-second recap of where the team stands, what just happened in the last week or two, where their rankings are, something of the sort, and then either we just bounce from one to another, so you just had every host giving it to you, like one after another, or we had some hosts in between kind of giving commentary on it, is that a show you'd be interested in hearing? Let me know. Talk to you soon. This is Locked On Jazz, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.